And good evening, and welcome to Spooky Storytime. I am your host, Brian Mason, and tonight we have a very special Facebook Live. Tonight, we're going to be doing a short story, and then we're going to be interviewing a lady who has lived in a haunted house for many years in Marshall, Michigan. Her name is Holly Harnden, and she's been gracious enough to be my guest tonight. But first, without further ado, let's read a little story. Come sit by my fire. This one happens to be from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's one of my wife's childhood favorites, and it's a short little story, but spooky nonetheless. The Girl Who Stood on a Grave. Some boys and girls were at a party one night. There was a graveyard down the street, and they were talking about how scary it was. "Don't ever stand on a grave after dark," one of the boys said. "The person inside will grab you and pull you under." "That's not true," one of the girls said. "It's just a superstition." "I'll give you $1 to stand on a grave," said the boy. "A grave doesn't scare me," said the girl. "I'll do it right now." The boy handed her his knife. "Stick this knife in one of the graves," he said. "Then we'll know you were there." The graveyard was filled with shadows and was as quiet as death. "There's nothing to be scared of," the girl told herself, but she was scared anyway. She picked out a grave and stood on it. Then quickly she bent over and plunged the knife into the soil, and she started to leave. But she couldn't get away. Something was holding her back. She tried a second time to leave, but she couldn't move. She was filled with terror. "Something has got me," she screamed, and she fell to the ground. When she didn't come back, the others went to look for her. They found her body sprawled across the grave. Without realizing it, she had plunged the knife through her skirt and had pinned it to the ground. It was only the knife that held her. She had died of fright. That poor girl. But anyway, on to the rest of the show, because this is going to be really fun for all of you. And I hope all of you are checking in now. If you haven't checked in, we'll see you on YouTube. You can watch us again on Facebook. As most of you know, I wrote a book, and we have started a campaign of writing haunted stories all over. The first book was entitled Haunted Marshall. It's ghastly tales of Michigan's most paranormal town. And I say that because we ran a ghost tour business here for many years, and we drummed up all kinds of haunted houses and eerie happenings. And one of which, the one that inspired me to write the book and to also have the tours, was the story of Holly Harnden in her home, the Clinton T. Cook House, that is haunted by Mr. Cook and who knows what other entities. But tonight, Holly is here as a special guest to tell you the story. And we even have some new things to talk about this evening. So without further ado, please welcome Holly Harnden to the show. Come on in, Harley. How are you tonight?
Hi.
And this is your first Facebook Live?
You bet.
Yeah, well, it's my second, so.
Well, I'm really happy to be here.
Well, good. Well, I'm sure our audience is happy to see you as well. We decided to bring people in that had different stories to tell. People who lived in haunted places or people that collect haunted memorabilia. So I've got a list of people, but I wanted to start with you because you remember we met about almost 10 years ago, I think it was.
We did.
And you remember that I bought a haunted house on a street here in Marshall. And I remember people saying to me when I was telling the neighbors, they said, "Oh, don't think anything of it. You need to go see Holiday Holly. She lives up on Mansion Street, and you go and see her. She's got a haunted house."
Wow.
And so that's, I think, we met somehow during that time.
Yeah.
And from there, you inspired me to go knock on other people's
Wow.
doors
Yeah.
to talk about ghosts.
Well,
And
certainly.
yeah.
There are so many older homes here, and a lot of them are haunted. So there's what better place than Marshall with a plethora of older homes to have some ghost stories be told. And Brian is a wonderful storyteller as well.
Well, thank you.
So-
I've enjoyed doing it here, drumming up all the stories and such. So tell us a little bit about your house, because Marshall is, the largest landmark historic
Yeah.
district in the nation?
In the small urban category.
In the small urban
Yes,
category,
yes.
okay.
So that's saying something. That's quite a big
Right.
honor.
So we have a lot of old homes here,
You
like
bet.
1830s and up, or
Yes.
40s, somewhere around there and
Yes.
up. What year was your house built?
My house was built in 1886, and Clinton T. Cook lived there, and he was a grocer in Marshall. In fact, where the Bogart Theater was
That's
his...
our local
Yes, our
movie
local
theater.
movie theater in town was his grocery store. So he didn't have a very far walk to go to get from there to the home.
And you've lived here how many years, roughly?
Gosh, since 2003.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about moving into the house and, what it was like, your paranormal experiences.
Right. Well, one of the first occurrences, before we even took possession of the house, was the previous owners had told us, too, that they had known that Mr. Cook was a grocer, and they had a lot of children, and they kept a little cash register that they'd play with amongst their other toys. And when they would put it away or, were through with it, the kids were growing up, I guess they allotted it to the attic. And every once in a while, they would hear a bell ring. And they would go up and they thought, well, this has to be Mr. Cook, somebody up there with the little cash register, because it was the cash register bell that they heard. It was the only thing with a bell that would have been up there to have heard. So they associated with it, and that they actually, when we took possession, they thought so strongly of this bell and that he somehow was communicating through this cash register that they left it for us as well.
Well, I mean, he did own the grocery store.
You bet.
So
another
he
way
would have
to-
had the cash register.
Yeah.
Maybe made him feel like home.
Exactly. So we still keep possession of it as well, and every once in a while I have heard it too, and other strange strange occurrences that have happened to me when I was there. First many years, my husband still was in Missouri and hadn't moved here with me yet, so I was there many years by myself on and off. And the old showers have the two hot and cold, and then the I don't know what you call the thing in the middle, but that makes it, it's both of them so they're not all hot or all cold.
They mix it like a mixer.
Yeah, it turns on.
Right.
That's the old-fashioned way.
Oh, yeah.
But I would go in to take a shower. Obviously, if I'm the only one there, I know better than to make it be all cold or all hot on me. So I'd always have the thing in the middle.
So what you're saying is when you're with Scott, you would do that. Your husband. You'd make it all cold.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure if he watches this that he knows why it happens.
No. But when he wasn't there, I would go in to take a shower and I'd turn it on and usually it's nice and, it would get warm or something, but it would always be cold and shock me and scare me. And I knew I hadn't done that. So who did that? Who was doing that? And maybe someone was laughing, but I wasn't because it was cold.
No kidding.
So that might have been another little thing. There are other things in the house too. I have pets. I have cats, and they're very in tune with noises and things that maybe humans can't perceive, but animals hear or see. And many, many times, I'll be sitting there watching TV or reading a book, and my cats, all of a sudden, there more than one, they will all look in one direction quickly. And I might have heard something or not.
Like they hear something.
Yeah, like they hear something. And sometimes they'll stare up at the ceiling, which leads up to another room. And I always look up too, and I always say, what is it? What do you hear? What do you hear? You know, I know they can't talk to me, but they look but they continue to look up there. And that happens every so often. And I go up to the room to investigate, and I see nothing.
So is there any room in your house that is more haunted than another? Is there more action or activity?
I would probably say yes, upstairs. That's why I say when they look up, they're looking at the attic. Probably the attic, and that is where I of course decorate. So I store a lot of Halloween items and spooky things as well up there. And a lot of people do ask me if I'm afraid. Well, usually not, but every once in a while I'll go up and I have a flashlight or something, and there'll be something that shifts or moves, and there's all these different things staring at me, and it's like, okay, I'm done now, I'll go.
We should mention that you have the nickname in town, Holiday Holly. And Holly decorates every holiday, including Flag Day and days you wouldn't even think to decorate, but especially Christmas,
and
Halloween, and Easter probably, but Halloween is a huge time, and it's on the corner of, I should mention, on the corner of Mansion and High Street. And it's right on the corner, you can't miss it. So if you go around Christmas or especially Halloween, they're going to get quite a show.
And one other tidbit, we actually closed on our house on Halloween.
That is very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. So how do people in town, because obviously you lived in Marshall long before I came, did you have conversations with other people that my house is haunted, or hey, what's this?
It's very interesting because, Brian, one day...
She's interested too.
Yeah, oh, sweetie girl. One
Maybe she wants to hear the story. Come on, we'll introduce you to my youngest little...
sweetie girl.
My youngest ghoul, Miss Lexington. How are you? Do you want to say hi to everybody? Do you want to say hi? She loves when Daddy reads stories. So maybe you want to sit here for a few minutes? Okay, well, carry on so she can hear.
So one day, usually my decorating does draw people from around different places and areas. And one day, around Halloween years ago, about 10 years ago, a lady came just before Halloween ended and presented me with this album. And she said she was a psychic. Yes, she was a psychic from Battle Creek and a medium.
Battle Creek, Michigan.
Yes, Battle Creek, Michigan. And
because there are people that aren't from Michigan.
That's true.
So we got
that's true. But she wanted to present me with this booklet of pictures that she had taken because she had told me that she got a really good feeling about this house and that there were orbs and wanted to show them to me. So these are some of her pictures.
Yeah, maybe put
I'm
that.
not sure you can see, but this was one over a Halloween. Now that's not a moon that you see up to the right-hand corner.
You'll have to
This
come
way?
in.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not a moon that large. Well, actually, it's right there, and there's another there where the orbs that she said. There's actually two more in this picture, but I'm sure they're too hard to see. But
she get a gist of it.
Yeah, she really was very impressed with this home and saying there were good spirits because upon reading about orbs, they say they do come in different colors, but they're clear is most common, but that white or silver, which these are, represent very positive energy and is almost like an archangel or guardian angel watching over. So I was very pleased to hear that.
That's interesting, and I wonder, if, and I'm going to read a little something because years ago, probably near the beginning of our relationship of knowing each other, that you had told me about these tiles that were around adorning your fireplace,
yes.
And that they were hand painted by Mrs. Cook,
yes.
Clinton T. Cook's wife,
yes.
And they had a story on them. And so I had said something to you, the other week, I think
Yes.
I mentioned about the painting, and
Yes.
you couldn't remember.
Yeah,
but
I said painting. No, I realized
So I-
you meant the tiles. Yes.
Right, so ironically, Holly went home and decided to look at the tiles again because we were going to talk about it. And it's actually, let me just give you the first stanza of, there's an entire poem written on these different tiles. And the first stanza I will give you might leave shivers up your spine.
Let's see if people can guess who the poet is.
Okay.
Some of you may know.
There you go. Yeah, they might. I didn't know, but yeah. Speak, speak, thou fearful guest, who with thy hollow breast, still in rude armor dressed, comest to daunt me, wrapped not in eastern balms, but with thy fleshless palms, stretched as if asking alms. Wow, why dost thou haunt me? So, anybody can guess if they're on, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that is a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and the name of the poem is...
A skeleton in armor.
Isn't that funny? I think that's funny that you went home and brought this tonight.
Yes, I knew that had been around there for many years, but it didn't even dawn on me either to think about, the depiction of the title.
Yeah, it is really
in a haunted
uncanny.
house. And
Yeah.
why would she, of all his poems, pick that to depict adorning the fireplace? And beautifully done, I might say. She must have been quite the artist because the tiles are immaculate and beautifully drawn to depict this whole poem about the Vikings. And it actually was a real skeleton that was real that they found in the 1840s in Massachusetts. And it was very unusual because his armor or something that he wore was very unusual, and they couldn't tell, what era or something that he came from. But he had quiver bows, and they were unlike things that even the Indians had, they said. So
That's
very,
interesting.
very, very mysterious.
It's mysterious that she would have, because they lived there during what years? I'm going to pass the little girl back before I'm covered. That's scary.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, that's scary. The house was built in 1886. So
Okay.
And Henry Wadsworth Longfellow died just, I think, 4 to 5 years previous to that. I remember
home.
reading. Yes.
I wonder what the relationship is to that.
Yes, I wish
That's-
I knew. I wish she would come back and tell me.
This is not a show, telling you to come visit anywhere in particular. We're not paid by anybody. I do have to say that if people have a chance and if they're interested in history, haunted history, Marshall would be the place to come. I mean, there's a lot of places to visit, but as a collection of homes, Marshall's got tons of
I
haunted
believe so.
places. I mean,
National House Inn.
Oh yeah, tons of people.
Beautiful places. Lots of very interesting, varied stories.
Yeah, and it's almost like second nature. A lot of people just, oh yeah, my ghost,
Yes,
or
well, we're known for the architectural history, but then along with that
comes
Yeah.
comes the Is there anything else that you can think of about your home that some of our guests might be interested in knowing? Some stories.
Well, one other little occurrence that does keep happening, and I don't know if this is something that, I don't know, poor workmanship or it's the lights in our house, even brand new ones, tend to blow out quickly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm. I've heard that with different.
Well, and I
paranormal.
they're supposed to be even the new kind, the new energy saving kind. They're supposed to last for years and
The
years
LEDs
and years.
and
Yeah.
whatever, and
they still. I don't get the value. They blow out, and I never really thought about it. But they say that if you have ghosts or entities, they do draw a lot of energy, and that is another possible occurrence that they are there. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Do we have anybody on live now that has any questions they want to ask? Or Courtney, do we have any live questions?
Yeah.
So if we have questions, I'm going to have my wife Courtney shout them out to you. So type your questions in. I'm going to give you a few minutes, but Holly, I want to tell you how happy I am that you came here, and you inspired me to do something that I've always done since I was a child, and that was look for ghost stories. I grew up in a
Wow.
very haunted area, and I lost that for a lot of years, I think.
Wow.
And when I met you, it turned it back around, and I never dreamed living here that I would turn a horse and carriage tour business into really a haunted business. And I did that for a lot of years, and now here I am still getting, and I find it something that I really love, and I have to thank you 10 years ago for kind of directing me in that path, whether you do it or not, or whether I knew it. And I really am happy that you came, and I'd like to give to you for coming one of my Got Ghost shirts. And it says Marshall does,
I love it.
and it has a list of all the places, all the commercial places that are
Love
haunted.
it.
So you can wear that around town.
Thank you.
And I also got a copy.
Thank you.
I know you probably, I don't know if you already have one or not, but I got a copy of my book Haunted Marshall for you.
Fabulous.
I know we're friends anyway. You would have gotten one anyhow, but I'm going to give you this. But I want to let everybody know that if you haven't gotten my book Haunted Marshall, Holly and Scott, her husband, their story is #1 in the book, the Clinton T. Cookhouse. We have sold copies of this all over the country.
That's fabulous.
It's been a lot of fun for our family to do this, and we spent a lot of years here telling your story.
Wow,
You
that's all
saw us
right.
come around the
That's-
corner many a night.
I couldn't
and
find anyone who would tell it better.
well, we
Seriously.
appreciate
You're
that. And
wonderful.
I want to turn it over and see, do we have anybody, Courtney, that has any questions, or we're...
I don't see any questions.
All right, well, I think we're good. Well, listen, again, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
I know the fire's really hot because it's like 55 in Michigan. Woo! That's
Very
it's
unusual. Another strange occurrence.
our January thaw, which we're not complaining, but I want to thank all of you for coming this week. And join me again next week for Spooky Story Time. And be sure to check us out, of course, here on the Facebook page. And if you're just joining us after the live, I hope you enjoyed watching it. This is recorded, posted right on our site. It's also on YouTube under Brian Mason's Haunted Travels. Again, don't forget to get the book. This certainly isn't plugging the book, but I feel that since you came, I might as well. Haunted Marshall, you can get this at hauntedmarshall.com or amazon.com. Marshall, Michigan, I would say, ghost legends and folklore in Michigan's most paranormal town. This is one of the most haunted towns, and Holly, you've got one of the most haunted houses in town, so or one of the highlights, I will say, people come to see. So again, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful week.